This is a high performance ATV. This engine requires synthetic oil, not full synthetic, synthetic oil every 10, I think it's 10 or 15 hours. I mean, this thing's just been a disaster. The market on these things have changed, and we'll just have to keep an eye on this. I'm just going to get this kind of tight. A leak, and it run right down. It was running right down the motor and run right down. And you don't need a lot of this stuff. It's real thin, and it does stink. We're going to come back with our case saver. It's going to be tight right there. I have to reuse the line, so we're going to attempt to take this off before. It might be a 13. I thought it was a 14. I've got to reorganize my toolbox here to 13 millimeter. And you'll want to replace these copper washers when you do this. And if you've been following the build, I don't even know if I got the microphone on. If you're following the build for the ATV, I've rebuilt one of these master cylinders, slave cylinders. Go get a towel. In one of my previous videos. Check the links below. Why didn't that have a copper washer on the bottom of it? Are you kidding me? There should have been a washer on the top and the bottom. Oh boy. Wow, this is so this is where I've run into, this is kind of why this will be the last ATV I ever work on. The guy that sold this to me lied to me on the phone, and you have to realize that after 15 years, you know, this ain't a Honda. I mean, look at the plastic. This is from the heat, because this is up by the handlebars. It's just falling apart. The line should be good. This is just a plastic coating, but people got to realize when you buy things like the Kelly Blue Book, I think I looked this up a while ago, it was like $2,500, but the deal is it's worth $2,500 if it's in 100% operating working condition with good tires. And nothing that you're going to buy on Facebook or Craigslist, which they don't really use anymore, or anything of that sort is going to be in the condition for the Blue Book value on these ATVs. I'm absolutely guaranteed, and that's a flare. So, you know, people got to realize that stuff when they buy this stuff, especially like this ATV here. This is a high performance ATV. This engine requires synthetic oil, not full synthetic, synthetic oil every 10, I think it's 10 or 15 hours of use. And a lot of people just don't understand that kind of maintenance on these things. So this is a high maintenance ATV, and this is the last ATV I'm ever working on, and I'm probably going to get rid of this lift when I'm done with this thing. So I'd like to get a different K&L lift. This Titan lift is a good lift, but it's got to go. It's too big for the garage since I'm staying here. So we'll get this line hooked up to the master cylinder up top. we're just gonna try to follow the wiring harness here. And then come in and hook this thing up. I actually think that this thing went into the dealership I bought it from, and I actually believe that they worked on this and tried to get this out the door, and their mechanic screwed it all up just to get it out the door. Because I bought this in Oregon, which is 2,500 miles from Illinois, and when I hired my shippers out of California, when they showed up, this thing didn't run. It had blowed through a $40 fucking custom made Polaris fuse, and they gave me a $200 discount, or they wanted to refund my whole money, and I already paid the guy 600 bucks, or no, 450 bucks. This was a couple years ago, to come from California to show up in Oregon to pick it up, and it don't run. The guy on the phone told me it ran, and then when it showed up, it was leaking oil. I mean, this thing's just been a disaster. The market on these things have changed, and we'll just have to keep an eye on this. I'm just going to get this kind of tight. I think that'll work. Then we'll come back down here and install the, there we go, we got to click the slave cylinder. Just need it off the ground. I've been working so much I can't get on the ground with my back pain. These are 8 millimeters. I don't really like the design that KTM chose here, that you have to take off your chain slider case breaker to get this off. And right there you can actually see we got a leak, and it run right down. It was running right down the motor and run right down. Well, the good thing is that gasket come right off of there. There's literally none left. I think, because this came from a KTM dealership, I think this thing wasn't going in gear. They threw a new gasket on there. They didn't clean the surface when they put the new gasket on. Then they hooked up the line, didn't put the other crush washer on the bottom of this like it should have had. So I only had one crush washer on the top to the metal plate with no other crush washer, and then just hurried up, didn't clean this because the other gasket just come right off, didn't stick to the motor, and it leaked, and they just pushed it out the door. It's just unbelievable. So what we have here is actually a case saver that I picked up. I'm not real sure the brand. It's 3D printed. I don't know. I lost interest in this ATV, and I bought another slave cylinder here, and I rebuilt this in a previous video. You go to the playlist below if you need help with that. And it's still springing. There's no ring in there that's dry. But see, here's all the new bolts right there. 2 crush washers, there should have been a crush washer on the top and a crush washer on the bottom to seal that banjo bolt on this. Oh, it just, I mean, you can't trust anybody to do anything anymore. And there's our new gasket. And I'll end up reusing the other bleeder screw. This one's pretty rough. So, and there was two, they're actually all different sizes in this kit. If you bought this kit, I'll put the link below. You're gonna have different size bolts because one bolt is longer on the actual cylinder to go into the motor, and on the KTM ATV, the IRS model, with the chain guard, slide, and case saver, the way it's made, it's not a standard dirt bike kit. So if you get this kit from Pro X, it's gonna have different bolts in it, which is fine. You just, when you take yours apart, you need to match the new bolts to what the length that you're pulling out, and remember which one goes where. See, we've got 5 bolts in this kit. This thing only takes 3. And the O-ring, must not have used that. That was for the internal, or no, that's a different seal. And I ended up not using that, I remember. So we'll get this over the other side. So I actually need to clean this. The one downfall is I changed this stator cover and painted it, and if I just spray this thing with brake parts cleaner, I'm gonna strip all the paint off of the cover, and I didn't get the cover to seal. It leaked engine oil, and I tried to just hockey puck it because it was for winter. So I'll just spray this towel and wipe this down so we get a good seal onto the motor. And we'll also clean the slave cylinder. Whoops. Okay, and I'm actually going to use aviation gasket sealant here. We'll zoom in a little bit to get this to seal. I don't want to have to do this again. And you have to move pretty quick with this, so if you do this, you might want to do it and then get ready. I think the cure time is like, they want you to put this on it in 5 minutes. Allow to dry for a few minutes before fastening the parts into position. So you've got to time it out and let it cure just a little bit before it gets torqued. Don't put this on and then just hurry up and put this on to the ATV. We clearly had a leaking problem, so we're going to kind of go. And I actually, when I rebuilt this, I sanded this down because when I painted this, KTM puts a layer of something on there. It's a coating onto the metal, and I kind of thought that over time with heat, fluid, and the motor itself, that coating might have got warped with the new gasket and stuff, but I think it was just a lack of knowledge and a lack of skill from the KTM mechanic that whipped this out of the dealership to get this shipped out. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually putting the gasket on, and then we'll coat the gasket and then apply it. And you don't need a lot of this stuff. It's real thin and it does stink. And I'll coat the other side as well. I don't want this thing leaking again. And it don't take much. It's very tacky. We'll let that set, coat it, and then get it installed onto the unit itself. Okay, so it's been a couple minutes. We're going to go ahead and do the other side here. And then we will go over to the motor and put this bad boy on. I'm not going to torque it down, we're just going to let it set. Is what we're going to do. We're going to get it up against the motor and I'm going to press it on and not put it into torque spec and let it set and then come back and torque it. So we're going to go ahead and press this unit on here onto the motor. Get one of our bolts in. We're going to come back with our case saver and get it on. And as you can see, this did not go on straight. That's why you don't want to put the torque spec on it. There we go. We'll go ahead and let that gasket sealer tack up and then I'll come back and tighten it. Okay, now we're going to come back and tighten it up. There we go. Then we've got our banjo bolt, our top crush washer. Gonna go through our line. Gonna put our bottom crush washer on. And hand thread this in before we torque it down so we don't strip threads. Then we'll reinstall our bleeder screw. It's going to be tight right there. Then in the next video we will try to bleed the brakes here. It's weird, KTM uses a syringe. I think it's kind of weird. I did notice one problem. When I put this bottom bolt in, it almost acted like it didn't want to get real tight. So I stopped. I didn't want to over torque it, but I'm really hoping that the internal threads aren't stripped out and that it got a good seal. We'll find out when we bleed it. I'm out of here.